Well, welcome back, folks. You've been watching during our break tactical deployment. The team's preparing because the map has been chosen. Ascension, everybody wanted it, and we get a chance to see it, and it is going to be Japan on the attack, Korea on the defense. This is a lot of what we expected to see. Likely, I think the side pick came from Korea, which is what it looks like. And so because of that, Korea said, we want to play defense. You figure out what you want to attack on. And Japan said, all right, bet. We're attacking on Ascension. So we're going to see Japan swarming in with their boats off the rip on this map. It's great to see this one on main.
This is going to be awesome. Yeah, chat, you wanted it. You get it. We aim to please. We kind of had a good idea that Korea was going to choose defense and Japan was going to go for a map. I expected them to pick maybe a map that was already played on stream, but no, not going to be the case. We are going into Ascension for the first time on stream. It's going to be a lot of fun, and already we are airborne. Japan in the heli, and the focus is on it.
Yeah, I mean, the helicopter is going to be a major player on this map. As per the usual, vehicles, everything, and we start off with a ton of them, obviously. A great start to the map. Now, this is a really interesting map and one we haven't seen on broadcast yet for the ACL, so it'll be really fun to watch it at the pro level to see what these teams are able to do and how they address these points. Obviously, you've got a couple different artillery guns that you can use on site on this map, which you're seeing Seiko already find some nice value from with the side of Korea, but already vehicles playing a major piece to the equation as JP is into the tank, ready and willing to get active here for Japan.
Excuse me, they lost their attack on trench lines, but can they win their attack on Ascension? One of the things that did them on trench lines was getting their vehicles removed early on, but also not capitalizing on taking down Korea's vehicles, more specifically the tanks. This time around, they're not going to make the same mistake twice. Chat, get your early predictions in. Japan, Korea, who's going to take this? Well, it's win or lose for both sides. Whoever wins moves forward, gets an additional $10,000, and has to play against the Titans on Thailand for a chance to move forward to grand finals. So if you're a Japan or Korea fan, this is the time to get loud. Japan making good effort onto A. They're starting to get it decapped. Korea trying to push them back.
Yeah, and I will say this push from Japan onto A is a nice push thus far. I don't know if they're going to be able to hold it for the entire time. This is kind of classic Ascension. This A point is actually a bit more difficult for an A point comparatively to some other maps. And so interesting to see that Korea said, hey, not only do we want to defend, but also probably not too dismayed about the fact that Japan said, we want to go to Ascension. Japan likely has the most experience on Ascension and attacking. We'll see if they're able to take this A point and move on their merry way. I would argue Ascension is one of the harder maps to attack, but that's in pubs. That's not at a very high level where you're coordinated. This map just requires a lot of coordination because of the way the points scale. You go from A to B to C, and you actually travel up the map into the upper areas. It can be quite difficult to take the entirety all the way to point E, so be curious to see what they decide to do in this one and how they're able to execute. But Korea, yet again, able to retake A, get some bodies on point.
Some bodies on point indeed. Let's not forget, Japan picked this map. This is the map that they chose. They understood they would be on the attacking side, but they wanted to be here. And maybe we're going to see why. I mean, their attack on A has been pretty clean so far. I believe the heli is still in the air as well. I don't think it's fallen down or been destroyed, and A is quickly being captured. Korea has a chance to push them back, but their forces are unfortunately on the retreat. And I think we're going to be focused on the B points relatively soon. Japan choosing Ascension, and now I can see why. They're looking solid.
Yeah, nice job. Able to capture A, able to secure it. They've got some covering fire from their tank up on top, playing high ground as per the usual. Same strategies we saw in trench lines. Take from the back line, artillery strike essentially down with the tank to be able to provide some covering fire. You can see our stat lines here after point A. Obviously, you've got Zazmat being the top fragger by far on this first point with 11 kills and 11 assists already, likely using the vehicle to help out for the team. But even still, a great start for that squad. Here's max lives going into news. 180 is going to be your total for this map. Get ready for a lot more action as the helicopters also having to play a bit more defensive because we've got vehicles on the side of Korea that are looking at this heli, making sure that it can't cause too much chaos from the backline.
Well, the good news is, even if the heli isn't necessarily getting eliminations, it's taking attention away from the valuable Korean vehicles. And obviously, if those Korean vehicles are focused on the heli, they're not taking down your foot troops on the ground. So, heli doing exactly what it needs to do. Umbushi is going to be the one in the heli, as he typically is from the side of Japan. He loves to rock the vehicles, and he does it incredibly well. Now the attack onto B1 and B2 is underway, and defensive forces are looking quite light on B1, which gives an opportunity for Japan to get the quick capture on it. And they did the same thing on trench lines, if you remember, on their attacking side. They took B1 and trench lines very quickly. B2 is where they struggled. Well, they run into the same issues here. And for the heli, again, doing a wonderful job distracting the vehicles from Korea, and it is paying off. Japan has a full frontal assault on the B1, plus you got Widow with the tank from the distance. I'm not gonna lie, I am very impressed so far from the attack on from attack side of Japan.
Well, it's obviously they're comfortable with it. They chose it for a reason, and they've played it the most, probably. This is one of the first maps that dropped in Warfare way back during the open beta, the open alpha, or closed alpha, rather. These are the maps that people are the most comfortable with, most likely, especially as a full team of 20. I can only imagine they've got the most experience here, and they know how to push these points. So they're able to take B1, looking at B2 now. The problem is, the interesting thing part about this map is this separation between B1 and B2. They don't quite have a ton of sight lines between the two because of the positioning of this kind of large rock formation between them. You almost have to form a semicircle around the rock formation and then make the swing. There's actually some really interesting choke points between B1 and B2, and it's going to be a little bit harder to tug of war as a comparison to maybe something like trench lines, which is fully shut off from each other just because of the trenches, but you absolutely could play Overwatch position with the tank. So we'll see what they're able to do here. Online with deadlock, he's able to pick up a couple using deployable cover for a little bit of help here using Uluru. Love this operator, LMG in hand, just throwing down bullets down range and picking up a couple kills doing it.
He'll finally fall, but I'm sure he'll get back up onto his feet very shortly. Great shots down range. Now the attention goes over towards B2, where we already have a vehicle trying to go for a couple of runovers and, more importantly, put Koreans' defensive forces into disarray. Japan moving quickly onto the B2 side of things. You notice the heli still in the air. Widow has repositioned the tank. Let's listen into Japan on the attack for B2. Japan's comms sounding clean, concise, not too muddy at all. They're continually pushing over towards B2. And also, an unintended effect of the heli is it's kind of like a UAV. It's able to scout out the troops from Korea, especially those ground troops who are obviously trying to push back Japan, who currently have the high ground. Question I have for you, Goj, is when did the tank and the Lav give it up? Like, when did they stop trying to shoot at this heli that is just off in the distance, and they focused on Japan, who's continually pushing forward?
Yeah, that's a really good question. They're basically, that helicopter is, yes, playing information gatherer, but also causing so much distress and so much distraction for those Korean vehicles that they basically are not doing hardly anything on this map. And because of that, A lost, B1 lost immediately, and now Japan is mounting their forces to make a B2 push. There is a nice defensive wall set up by Korea right now, so it's not incredibly urgent. You don't have to do it right this second, but if the push comes to B2, all of a sudden, these vehicles from the Korea side are going to be invaluable to hold. The problem is, when the push comes to B2, this helicopter is going to know it. This is a fully organized, commanded group with one voice per squad and then a main commander holding the line and communicating with the team. So when the push comes through, the helicopter knows it needs to not only do evasive maneuvers like it's doing right now, but it needs to get active because these tanks are going to harry our attackers that push over to B2. It's going to be this cat and mouse game. It's going to be the chicken versus the egg. It's going to be who moves first and who gets caught moving second. And I don't know who's going to win that fight yet, but I'm excited to continue to watch it.
It's the first time we've seen Korea on the hilltop where Japan was bunkered up. Got a couple of stragglers that are still going to be up there, but Korea's done a wonderful job pushing them back. And now you got a question, how close can Korea get over towards B1? We're down to 134 lives remaining, still relatively healthy for Japan. Nothing to worry about just yet, but Koreans' forces are starting to look more and more solid as time goes on, as the Lav and the tank now start to focus their attention onto Japan's flankers on the left-hand side going for the off angles. Let's listen in to Korea.
이거 비건 타면 안 된다. 아니야 괜찮아. AA 뽑아야 돼. 헬기 봐주세요. 헬기 신경 써줘. 나 이거 지하에서 할게. 그냥 지하에서 할게. AA 대동님 들었어. 들었어. 그냥 해. 위에서 AA. 네. 30mm예요. 우리 이거 B 하나 밑에 거든. 세팅 다를 것 같은데. 뒤에 헬기. 아니야 지금 하면 돼요. 죽어서. 헬기 조심. 일단 재배치하고 뒤쪽으로 이동합니다. 이거 B2 집중해 주세요. B2에 우리 들어가면 좋아요. 싸우자. 우리 포지션 보고 행동해 주세요. 저희 탱크 치료 쓰고 있어요. 우리 이거 왼쪽으로 돌아오는 분들 없고 오른쪽으로 돌아오면 나 이거 등산 먹으려고 가운데 B1 집결하고 있어요. 왼쪽 아래로. 우측 도는 거 다 잡았어요. 저희 탱크 위치 신경 써주세요. 아 오케이. 이거 대동님 거기서 뽑고 있나요? 아 뽑으려고 이동 중입니다. 좀 걸려요. 아 헬기가 나 20초 내로 뽑아. 20초 내로.
Some urgent communication being given from Korea. Comms obviously magnificent. You're able to hear the urgency though behind some of the words that were being shared there. Non-stop action, but also a command of we have to cover whatever we are worried about, which is obviously like a helicopter, but also maintaining position on this high ground. This is what I was talking about before between the separation between B1 and B2. It's about who controls this high ground in order for you to have an advantage. And right now, Korea has retaken the high ground. Yes, Japan has looked strong. Yes, they push A to B1, but I wonder if Korea said, you know what, we want the defense because pushing from B1 to B2 can be incredibly difficult, and we can hold them at this point. We know how to hold it down because yes, there's been a couple chinks in the armor, but frankly, this hold is nearly immaculate. Even with a bird in the sky, it's looking really strong on the Korea side. Japan really hasn't had an opportunity to make any sort of real push to this building at all.
They're breaking up again. They're sending a squad to the road who are already in a bit of shambles. They get gunned down on board with, obviously, Japan, and from this perspective is they're trying to move more so to the left-hand side, which is going to be quite difficult because Korea are going deep into the countryside, deep into the mountainside, and they're disassembling Japan one by one. Finally, the tank will move back into position. It was Wolf before. This time around, it's going to be a different player, but already taking quite a few shots, forced to back away. We're now down to 109 lives. Let's talk about what's at risk here, Goj. Korea, if they can hold on to B1 and B2 and shut Japan down now, it doesn't matter what Japan had in their intentions for picking Ascension. Korea wins the series 2-1. They move forward to play against Thailand. Japan, their tournament life is at risk, and their risk now is to push forward. That's what they have to commit, and they've got to play harder than they have ever played in this tournament if they want to try and stay alive. B2 has yet to get captured. In fact, I don't even think a tick has been released from that B2 hold from Korea's side.
Yeah, it's a great shot. I love that we're getting that picture in the bottom right-hand corner. It does look like Korea was able to get another lav that they've held up onto where you push up to C. So you all remember, this is the person I'm talking about. Our observer team all the way in Shanghai is listening to me. This is an important spot. I don't know how much value they're going to get there as well. It does look like our tank gets taken down. That's on the side of Japan. That's going to be a frustrating loss for them. But here's the crazy part. You've got that loft way up there. One thing you can do is potentially shoot at the helicopter, which is a huge boon. Second thing you can do is if B2 falls, you've got a massive line of defense for anybody trying to come up the zip or even up the elevator on the other side. That vehicle is going to be a problem, and they can't afford to lose that vehicle if they do lose anything here. And you can see it is all about harrying this helicopter and making sure it can't get a crazy amount of value on the people down below. It's going to throw shells out and make this helicopter back way away. The helicopter is going to be the saving grace of Japan. The bird in the sky could wipe all these people on top of the hilltop if it could get close enough. The problem, Taylor, if it gets close enough, it's going to get blown out of the air immediately.
Without a doubt, it hasn't had a chance to, I don't even think, get even a handful of eliminations. I don't believe anyways, because it's been kept back, which, again, that distraction was truly valuable in the beginning, but now it's a question of, well, how much value is it really getting, and should it be more aggressive on the ground troops down low for Korea to help Japan push forward? Is this the moment where B2 finally gets contested? I saw a couple of members from Japan get on it. A couple of ticks were coming away for the decap, but ultimately recovered from Korea's perspective. Remember when Japan played against China and they were on cracked? Japan was in a similar situation as we are here now. They were on top of the high ground trying to break into point A. And where they ran into the problem wasn't necessarily the high ground position, but is when they started breaking off to try and go to the lower position. And Japan is running into the same problems now. When they were breaking away from the high ground to go down into the street, one by one, Japan was getting mowed down, whether it's because of the lav, whether it was because, of course, the ground units or the tank. Korea had their number. Japan is so stuck onto this hillside that they don't know how to break away from it and get down to B2, and because of that, they're at a standstill.
Yeah, and this is exactly what I was talking about. This hillside is everything in the battle between B1 and B2, and Korea have held it for multiple reasons. One of those, that respawn beacon on the hill. People are able to spawn right there in the mix, able to maintain control of the high ground just because of numbers advantage. I want to shout out, there was a player in chat that said something that I thought was really interesting. I don't think this is everything. It's not the main strategy. One thing that needs to happen, though, maybe the route man can be paid in this matchup as well, Taylor. Look, Japan has a history of being able to send people on the backline with an armored assault vehicle, or just a single player that can maybe skate into the backline and get a tactical respawn beacon in. That is really your only hope and prayer to break through this defense. The defensive wall that is being set up right now by Korea is not moving anytime soon. So the only way to go, if you can't go through a wall and you can't go over or under it, you're gonna have to go around it. That's the only other option, and that's exactly what's happening. Japan trying to go around this wall, around the backside, and get involved. The problem, there's a tank on the other side. You better be willing and able to take that thing out and take it out immediately. You can see Appleton on the far left-hand side. He is a little bit in green, a different shade of green, because that is the Japan commander who is calling for this push around the backside to try to take care of this tank. This is a really aggressive play, but they need it right now, and this tank is very low. They're able to get it. What a play from Japan. A great call by their commander to make a move around the backside, clean up this angle, and all of a sudden, an opening, a hole, a chance to move forward. Very well done.
Yeah, very well done indeed. They finally break onto B2, but now they're losing B1. The push and pull is in effect. They now have to back away and try and recover what they had for the longest time. Now they have to recover a point that they dominated, but now is being contested, which puts troops away from B2 and gives the advantage back to Korea, as they are now once again on B2 and going for the recovery. Granted, that vehicle is huge for Japan. If they can keep that vehicle alive, keep it in there for the attacking side, they're going to be looking much more decently than they would have been if it was just ground troops. Now the lab and the tank is moving through. They've recovered B1. They're making quick work of B2. Goj, I think Japan has finally broken through, and it was because of that wonderful flank attempt, taking off the tanks in the back line. That's what saved the day.
Look, again, as much as I've been lauding the commanders, I have to do it again. Abaton makes a fantastic call to swing around the flank. You can't go over the wall, under the wall, or through the wall. You better go around it. They were able to execute the play. Very well done from Abaton and Japan to force us into new. Look at Abaton's stats. The highest scoreline by a mile because of the commander. Everything else, not all that much to write home about. And that's the nature of the commander. They are the unsung heroes that are commanding their squad, and our game rewards them by score, which they can use for some rewards in game. And, well, somebody was ready for that vehicle. That is the big, you called a Giga Chad, whatever you said about our medics.
Right, I don't even
Talk
know.
about a Giga Chad 5-head huge brain play. Wolf down in the elevator, waiting on these vehicles to roll up to the elevator, waiting inside of it, right as they come flying in, closes the door, taking the elevator to stall out the players down below. Genius play to slow down the roll of Japan and take out an armored assault vehicle. That was sick.
Yeah, sick indeed. Taking out those vehicles going to be critical. We've been talking about it and harping on the fact the vehicles make the dream work. You need them in order to find success. You take down one of them, it really hampers your opportunity and your plans and ultimately your goal of trying to get the victory. We're going on to Zip. We're going up. Korea, you can see them just firing shots down low, trying to take them out before they can even reach the top. You also have the heli still in the air, and that's Moshi, who's done such a good job being a distraction, but more importantly, also getting the critical eliminations when needed. We're finally on the attack. This is why I love Ascension. We have now gone all the way up. Things are going to start getting even more intense. They struggled, and for a long time to get B1 and B2, of course, talking about Japan, but now can they get C1 and C2? What's the landscape going to look like going in to these next objectives? Well, let's find out after the listening with Japan.
エレベーターロックされてる可能性あるって乗り物、アビさん。ロックされてる可能性ある。
戻れない一回。ミルキーベンダー待ってちょっと。
まだわからない。確認できない。
まだわからない。
脱起こして。
ヘリポートは車両出せるよ。
いや、出してる出してる。
山上注意ね、山上。エレベーターは動かない。
動いてる。今動いた。
オッケーオッケーオッケー。
キラメタ裏取り今向かってる。
オッケー、じゃあ車両上がるタイミングで、ロック頼むね、車両出してね。エレベーターの前に入れてあげて。
Well, a great listen in here from our squad on screen. It seemed like they're trying to decide how they want to approach this point. And it looks like they're going to try to go up the backside. One player trying to play the backside of this defense and immediately cut down Japan, moving half their force over the wall and around the corner because, frankly, these points are very difficult to take. C1, C2 is a choke point fiesta. This is one of my favorite maps. It's so beautiful, but Korea has been given the information that there's a team moving on the flank, and who answers them besides that lob that's been up here for years? It's been waiting on this point, and as it goes to play the aggressor, it gets immediately answered back by another lob from the attackers. A great flank and a great setup from Japan. Let's see how much value they get from it as they swing in the backside, the front side at the same time, and try to give a pincer maneuver and potentially take out this Korean tank in the middle with a tank of their own.
Yeah, Sarah Jin's going to have some company very soon, but has the backside of the Widow, and Widow, I believe, is dead to right. Sarah Jin full sends it.
No way.
Wolf on the run, at least pushes him out and saves the day. Wolf staying alive is critical there, but shout out to Sarah Jin for staying alive in that moment and, you know, keeping his head on a swivel. You want to keep your tanks, especially here. They're just going to be so critical. And I think for the first tank or the first lap to go down, that's going to be a huge disadvantage for your side. And the defense from Korea is brilliant. It really is. Japan still trying to find how do we penetrate these tunnels, get in, and attack Korea, holding it down tight.
Yeah, I actually really like this flank play. It also will allow people to spawn on that backside if that Lav maintains its space outside of combat, is kind of jockeying back and forth in combat. I like that space to be able to at least provide some pressure on both sides so this choke point isn't just 20 Korea members holding the line. I mean, look at all these players that are spawning over here with the Lav. They're just re-surmounting efforts back and forth. The problem is, if you get too close, this other Lav looking down range holding this choke point. You're gonna have to make a push at some point, whether armor assault vehicle or this Lav by itself. This is a jockeying of positions, but at some level, you're gonna have to fly in and say, all right, everybody move at the same time, front, back, and everyone in between. Let's rock and roll. As the Korean attention is split, here comes the push from Widow. Trading of blows, tank versus tank. Who's gonna come out on top? One a hair smaller than the other, but it doesn't mean it has, well, it does mean it has a lot less firepower. Sarah Jin blows it to smithereens, stops the push from the front, and readdresses from the fight from the back while also maintaining some healing. Look, I like the light tank, but the M1 reigns supreme when it comes to fire to power and able to stay alive and able to stay up with the engineers to get back to full health.
And that is a major loss from Japan's side of things, losing their tank. Sarah Jin staying alive, winning the 1v1. That was the second attempt that Japan sent to try and take out Korea's tank. Unsuccessful. It's going to hurt. Korea's got to be feeling good. Let's listen in.
이거. 지금 위험한 거 브리핑 해주세요. 지금 위험한 거. 여러분 시트 앞에 맞아. 시트 앞에. 확인했습니다. 경탱크 시트. 저희 쪽에서 경탱크 수리수 한 명 붙일게요. 아, 이거 라브 뽑았어요. 뒤에서 라브, 뒤에서 라브. 뒤에 라브 뽑았어요. 뒤에 라브. 나가지 마. 확인했습니다. 내가 나가지 마. 헬기가 봐주고 있어, 엔지라. 아니, 킬러가
뒤로 온다 이제 뒤로 온다.
라브 탔어요, 애들, 군병 애들.
예,
라브 탔고.
탔습니다.
형, 우리 그냥 걷던 스팟 안 들려. 이거. 아, 약간 조용히 하라고. 조용히. 시원 들어. 제가 살짝 뒤로 빠질게요. 시원 좀. 크게 말하면 아무것도 안 들려, 진짜. 상대 라브 지른데, 상대 라브 지른데요. 필이야, 필. 울베로 상대 라브 지른데, 울베 라브. 라브 하자 맞춰서 라브 필이야 가는 거. 라브 필이야 가는 거. 라브 필. 아, 라브 보러 갈게. 느마. 뒤에 보병도 다 잡았어. 나이스.
정리 좀.
Korean listen in, chaotic as always, but also clean. Their communication on point. It was so chaotic because if you watched, Japan was making great headway onto C1. Korea had to get serious. They had to also battle against another Lav that was spawned in from Japan's side of things, sent it into the tunnel. You also had a Japanese tank that was right in between C and D, and ultimately, it was Korea who was able to hold on, destroy the Lav, push Japan back, and now Japan has 2 more good pushes left as far as I'm concerned. Things are starting to hit the wall, but one thing that we know about Japan, they're used to having their back against the wall, and they've always find a way to end up on the other side as a positive. But can they do it this time with their tournament life on the line? That's the question. Japan is going to have to clutch up and go big, and they've got to find a successful attack. They almost had it, but unfortunately, it didn't work out.
Yeah, and again, I mean, this is what everybody at home, this is what we were saying. I'm going to be honest, like, the problem here is that these C points, when the defense is allowed to keep their vehicles alive interior, are nearly impossible to take. Like, we've tried so hard to figure out how to enter into either side, but the real problem is you've got to get rid of these tanks at the entrances, or these choke points are going to be harried by so much firepower that the chances of you making your way in is just so minimal. And we're seeing a big stack on this other side of the point, trying to get onto C1, which seems like it's well defended from our POV, as Japan gets another lob on the backside, same spot they had before to allow more respawns to happen on the backside between points D and C2. And we'll see what they're able to do here, if they're able to make it in and make a difference. They've got to start getting very aggressive, and it sounds like, as you saw, one player from Korea spawn on this side, spotted the vehicle, told their team, and immediately the lob responded from Korea. So well executed from the defense. It's just an utter bloodbath, utter chaos, as finally we got bodies on C1, but only for a moment.
Yeah, only for a moment indeed. Green starting to overwhelm red, and of course that's Korea on the defensive side, overwhelming Japan. I want to shout out Korea and what they do with their vehicles from the Lav's perspectives. Just pre-firing that entrance, consistently firing shots before the Lav of Japan is even in the entryway. Doing so keeps it back, forces it to back up. It's like as soon as it gets the confidence to push forward, well, it takes damage and then has to back up, get healed, and it's just wasting valuable time. Korea doing a wonderful job with their vehicles, whether it be their tanks, their Lavs. They are holding it down so easily and concisely. For the first time, though, Ghost, Japan will make an attempt on C2, and this looks like their best effort yet.
Well, and again, this is the classic scenario where you have to at least send some people to the off point to at least create some pressure. This is going to relieve some of the pressure at the C1 entrance for the main body push. You can tell there wasn't that many people on C2. I think it was about 5 or so that was swung over by Japan, and even the vehicles responded. So the question is, did the rest of the team, were they lying in wait to push C1? It sure doesn't look like it. It sounded like kind of just a last-ditch effort, not really coordinated correctly, and nobody was there to answer onto C1, and because of that, a lot of wasted time and a complete retake by Korea. This is such a difficult map, frankly, to attack from in general. Here's your biggest last-ditch effort. 37 lives will go far with the amount of revives that this team is able to pick up, but an actual tank, albeit a light one, into the mix could change things. And yet again, another armored assault vehicle looking for a couple respawns and looking to try to make their way in and help out their team on this entry. But Sarah Jin has been unstoppable in this M1 tank, just blowing people to smithereens and holding this line. Here come the two vehicles pushing in. Sarah Jin backs up, lays down the firepower, and without hardly an answer back, half health, but here comes the backup. Welcome to the party. The Lav comes flying in, blows up the light tank. It ain't even close. Korea is unstoppable interior with these vehicles. Finally, there's some sort of answer on a C2. It was the armored assault vehicle that made it to C2, dropped off bodies, but those bodies are all down.
Yeah, Sarah Jin. Oh, Sarah Jin finally falls. The tank is gone. Unfortunately for Japan, they lost their vehicles just a little bit earlier, so they don't even get an advantage after taking down Korea's tank. Finally, after so many wasted efforts. C1 and C2 still in control of Korea. You notice C2 is taking away, but now it's coming back in control of Korea. We have another missile coming through from the Korean side of things. We'll take down some of the Japanese members, who are now down to 9 lives. This is the end. I don't see Japan coming back, and Korea choosing defense. Japan choosing this map on Ascension, the first time it's played on stream. Well, at least from Japan's side, unfortunately, it will be their final time on stream. A good effort, but they just couldn't hold on. Korea, too strong.
Yeah, and again, I don't know if it's a misstep. I think they were just most comfortable with this map. They felt like they could do it. And, of course, making great efforts here. A and B looked pretty strong. Monumental efforts from Abaton on the flank to hold B2, or capture B2, rather, and take out the Korean tank. But this interior fight is just so difficult. We've all played it. And it looks like, finally, look how many players from Japan just spawned in. We're able to swing over to C2. This is by far the best effort, as a complete relinquish of C2 with 5 lives to go. All of a sudden, somebody's blowing the fan on the fire, and the embers are catching light, the kindling. C1 and option, C2 gone. With Sarah Jin out of their tank, there's an opening. Everybody in chat, we were standing in the booth, it was GG's. Don't count them out yet. It probably is, but overtime right around the corner, and the job's not done yet.
Yeah, they lost their lab, though. That is so unfortunate. That was putting in tremendous work, even aiding in the fact that Sarah Jin was destroyed with the tank from the Korean side, and the lab was the or responsible for it. Will they have a chance to get another lab down, maybe even another tank, to penetrate the caves once again. C2 getting that full capture would be massive. It's going to be played around with. You see the exclamation point. Korea pushes Japan off of it. They will start getting the decap once again. And well, with 2 lives, Ghosh, I think that's going to be all she wrote. A wonderful effort. 1 life remaining from Japan's perspective. 0 now. And done. Korea, well done. They get their first win on stream. They will officially defeat Japan. They'll hug it around. They're excited. They're feeling good. And they will move forward in the tournament to play against Thailand. But from Japan's perspective, Goj, it was awesome watching them compete. Wonderful seeing them play. I understand they're going to look defeated on stage, but I hope they hold their heads up high because this is just the beginning of Delta Force Esports.
You can see the excitement there from Dead Dog. Absolutely crushed it. Great commanding officer for this team. Huge success. Doubled the amount of prizing they're bringing home at the very least. Huge congratulations to them. Of course, we got some interviews on stage to listen into. But overall, Taylor, I'm really impressed with both of these teams and just really glad they were able to make it here on main stage.
Yeah, without a doubt. And I'm glad that you shouted out Dead Dog. You know, he looks so defeated yesterday. And I say defeated, not necessarily in the sense of, man, we can't win, we can't come back, but more so that you could just tell how important it was for him as the commander to lead his team. And he did exactly that. He led them to victory.
我是韩国人. 안녕하세요. 저는 한국에서 또 델타버스 한국 대표팀으로 오하라고 합니다. 안녕하세요.
And yet again, by the way, they brought up another player. They did this last time. Both teams had done this, where a second interview is given to a new player. OAH, a difference maker for Korea, and that's who this player is. It's great to see him up on stage getting some recognition.
心情真的是超级无敌好啊！
They're sharing the love, right? Giving everybody the opportunity to get their stream time, flex who they are this early in Delta Force Esports. I think it's incredibly important to have that moment to shine and give your answer to the fans.
因为我们昨天在比赛的时候，其实状况不是很好，所以今天比赛前其实氛围其实也没有特别好，但是在比赛过程当中呢，最后结果还是特别好的，所以现在心情也非常开心。那既然的话，其实在之前的
It's also worth mentioning too. Like I'm seeing a lot of people in chat talk about, oh, it's so hard to win on the attack and Ascension. Like, hey, Japan picked Ascension. Like they felt good about it. They just couldn't execute.